Hello and welcome back to the Pauncho YouTube channel. So today we're going to embark on yet another visual novel adventure. Very text heavy, very reading heavy. It's a good thing so many folks are in love with my negative octave voice. Anyway, we are going to jump into her Lullaby, a story by Polly S. And I'd like to imagine the S stands for Sriracha Mayo, along with John Jacob Jingleheimer Thayer. So let's jump right into the experience. And the first order of business to attend to is to wake up. Some ellipses to start with. Ugh. Ugh. Hurts. I said my head fucking hurts. At this point, I had no idea who or what I was screaming bloody murder at. But I was definitely sure of two things. One, my head fucking hurt. It felt like an entire hornet's nest had taken up residence in my brain and then trashed the place because it wasn't up to their standards. And two, I had no idea where I was at or what was even going on. The headache made it seem like my earlier scream was still echoing off whatever walls were in whatever place I was in. My throat burned like I'd stupidly downed an entire bottle of hot sauce on a dare. My brain realized that screaming anymore would only make the situation worse. I inhaled to let out another shout anyway when I heard something. "Must you be so loud?" That was definitely another human voice. Hopefully it was coming from an actual human. "Can you open your eyes?" When I woke up, I found it rather difficult to focus myself. Well, from the tone of voice, I could definitely tell it was another woman. Was she British, maybe? I always did like a lady with an accent, though, so bonus, I suppose? I guess that was the only comfort I was getting out of the situation for now. "You're not hard of hearing, are you?" "You don't look old enough to be breaking down just yet." And she was a smartass, it would seem. "No, I can assure you that I'm very not deaf." "To tell you the truth, I'm not sure what's going on here either. I woke up here, just like you. Same splitting headache, too." Hey, that rhymed. She casually giggled to herself at her very unfunny joke as if to try to make light of whatever the hell kind of situation we were in. I ran my hand down my face as if trying to wipe the darkness from my clouded vision. A worthless gesture, of course. No matter how hard I rubbed at my eyes or squinted, it was completely impossible to make any visual sense of what was going on. The blackish-looking blob sitting across the room from me didn't really seem familiar either. "So, it's just the two of us?" "Seems like it." "If this is your idea of a date then, lady, I would kindly suggest that you reassess your technique." Still able to make light of all of this. That means either she was incredibly stupid or had some unknown reason to feel safe. I couldn't really imagine it being the latter. Unless... So, what exactly do you know? "Well, probably about as much as you. Woke up with a bloody headache in some place I've never seen with some unknown person I've never met in my life sitting across from me, holding a rather dangerous-looking knife." Wait. What? I clenched both of my hands, and sure enough, there it was. My left palm gripped the handle of what definitely felt like it could be a rather dangerous-looking knife. I imagine you'll notice just as much once you've got your senses about you, yeah? The incessant ringing in my head slowly dulled as my eyes adjusted themselves to the lighting. The figure belonging to the voice I'd been briefly making friendly chatter with began to reveal itself to me. From about 10 feet away from me, she sat with her back against the wall, her arms wrapped around her knees, huddling herself into a little ball. She wore all black everything. A long black peacoat seemed to conceal most of her frame, not that her current posture was helping much at distinguishing her actual figure. Her blonde hair poked out from behind a hood she kept pulled up, as she did her best to avoid eye contact with me. A seemingly normal black pair of pants and boots completed her very straightforward sense of style. But once my eyes had fully adjusted themselves, they darted immediately toward a small glint of light near her right knee. Yep. That was definitely the sparkle of a very well-kept and, of course, dangerous-looking knife. Though she'd only been speaking to me moments earlier, her attention seemed more fixated on her shiny, deadly little doodad. She playfully bounced the lower portion of the handle on her knee and twirled her deadly blade between her fingers, careful not to gash herself wide open, of course. It was hard not to be a little entranced watching the blade dance between her slender fingers. She seemed almost too comfortable. "It's really not nice to stare." Her voice still had the amused tone to it from earlier, when she'd been joking about her situation, which made the act of her casually playing with a fucking knife seem even stranger. "Toko." Huh? "Toko!" I hadn't really thought about it much, but I guess I was hungry. "There's food?" She finally tore her gaze away from her blade and gave me a firm stare. "Toko. T-O-C-C-O. It's my bloody name, come on now. You're not that daft, are you?" Ow. Oh my god. What the fuck? Hey, you okay over there? The voice from the other side of the room that was crystal clear only moments ago now sounded, it was like coming from a million miles away, or perhaps buried under a sea of murky water. The quick pain that shot through my entire head felt like I'd been just shot point blank with a shotgun blast. That is, if those didn't just straight up kill you instantly. Still unable to see clearly and with a gesture that can only be described as feeble, I once again squinted my eyes and waved away her concerns with my hand. I didn't trust her at the moment, and I certainly didn't trust me. But there was something. Something. A thought. A quick grasping of a passing thought. Something. Kind of get of a Gygas fight sort of swirl there. "Hey." Whatever she had to say needed to be brushed aside for the time being. There just wasn't enough room in my head for both her prattling and me figuring this out. So now we get some choices to make as to what we do next. These choices, as you might imagine in a visual novel, will have an impact on how the story proceeds. Although I would imagine it would be a little bit difficult to take your attention away. It looked like a pretty standard tactical knife to me. Not anything special from a casual glance. This one had a boring old matte finish and wasn't all that impressive compared to Toko's shiny piece of cutlery. That said, it was quite easy to tell that this thing was sharp enough to split hairs. It could easily gash or penetrate anything I decided to turn it against. And I wasn't quite sure why. But that thought really excited me. Huh? I'd been so caught up in examining the lethal instrument in my hand that I'd hardly noticed my senses were returning one by one. Terrible lighting, more than a hint of dust in the air, and the slight chill to the air made me just a bit envious of the coat that had adorned my new friend. At least it didn't smell like shit like these places always tend to do. Guess there's always a silver lining somewhere to be found. So... Oh my god, would you just stop it? What? Have you already gone completely nutty? Fucking fuck! Why? Why do you keep... Look, we need to just... I just couldn't stand it. I just couldn't stand it anymore. The sound of her voice became a distorted wall of sound. I wasn't even hearing words anymore, just a syncopated series of noises that I was sure some hipsters could mistake for music. Why did she keep talking? Fuck. Fucking hell. It wasn't even her talking that irritated me. The fact that she was even breathing was driving me insane. Her very existence was wrong. You really look like you need to have a lie down, love. I just glared at her. A glare so intense the heat could melt a glacier. If looks could. Oh boy. Well, looks like we made a wrong decision somewhere. No other option, unfortunately. My fingers coiled around the knife in my left hand like a snake immobilizing its prey. If I'd gripped it any tighter, I'd swear it had left a permanent mark. I think you need to calm down. More fucking noise. That's all you do is make fucking noise. But before she'd even finished that god-awful distortion she'd probably call a sentence, my body was already acting on instinct. Before I'd even realized it, I'd sprung to my feet and leapt forward toward the hooded devil. The distance closing between us felt like a complete blur. Had I really just leapt nearly 10 feet across the room in a single bound from a sitting position? Or was that the adrenaline coursing through my veins just making me believe that? Did it really matter? I didn't even pause to try and get a look at the expression on her face. My arm, with a mind of its own, extended itself towards its intended target. Anywhere on her torso would do. If she was still alive after that, it wouldn't take much effort to finish her off. And then... silence. There was only silence for what felt like an eternity, but was only truly a few brief seconds. She made more grotesque and disgusting noises, but there was no way anyone would understand her sounds as human speech any longer. Her groans, gulping, and gurgling echoed throughout the room as she looked up at me with a pained expression that somehow seemed self-satisfied. Was she grinning? Trying to laugh through the pain? I didn't understand. I looked down to check my mark, and sure enough, I'd done as I intended. The knife I'd lunged at her with was plunged deep into her gut. The warm blood rushing from her wound was confirmation. She sat against her wall, gasping for air. She seemed to be grasping onto some dim hope that she might somehow survive this. She was almost laughing in my face as the lifeblood drained from her pierced stomach. But I hadn't even noticed. As my eyes traced a line down from her suddenly grinning face, I began to understand. Her right arm was fully extended, as if she'd thrown it out there on instinct to hold me back the moment I'd lunged at her. My gaze continued down the length of her long sleeve. And that was when I felt it. The pain I felt in my chest was unbelievable. I tried to scream, and all that escaped me was a groan of agony and some blood that splattered Toko's grimacing face. Despite her fatal wound, she mercilessly pushed the knife into me with all her might. I spitefully returned the favor in kind, pushing my blade further into her stomach and pulling it upward as best I could. I wanted to fucking split her open, and she seemed to feel the same way. Neither of us had the energy for this any longer, but that didn't stop us for some reason. What kind of sick fucking contest was this? Eventually, her grip loosened and her hand fell limply to her side, leaving the blade she'd impaled me with mid-lunge through the left center area of my chest. I fell to my knees in front of her, my hands feebly finding their way to her knife. I wanted to scream, I wanted to breathe, I wanted to anything, but each attempt was met with agonizing pain and more bleeding out. Her breathing hastened as she slumped down the wall. Her eyes grew distant as our blood oozed onto the floor around us. It'd all be over soon. My last drops of energy drained out of me as I fell forward onto Toko's still struggling to cling to life body. The fabric of her pea coat was somehow comforting. I instinctively nuzzled my face into it, knowing that it was the last earthly thing I'd ever enjoy. I don't even think I was breathing anymore. Not that I'd even want to, given how painful everything was at the time. I turned my head to look up at Toko's face once more. She was clearly too far gone to be aware of anything. So why did I still want her to suffer? Who were you to me? Who was I to you? Why did I feel I had to do this? Did you feel the same way? But really, who fucking cares? My eyes saw nothing but dancing waves of static. My ears, that were only moments ago filled with the despair of our violence, now heard only the finality and dark silence of my coming death. Until... Ew. What? So... How was she still going? Every cough brought a new gush of blood from her mouth, but still, she pushed forward. There was something important she just had to say, even like this. Glad you'll... What could either of us possibly have to be glad about? You're... dead. That's the dead end, and I have hiccups. Alright. So if we scroll over to the event gallery, we are able to look at what we've achieved ending-wise, excuse me. So now we have a bit of commentary on the ending. All that build-up, and they were just like all the others. I guess they both got what they wanted, so it's sort of a happy ending if you think about it. I wonder how it makes her feel. Well, that's a little cryptic. So let's go back to the main menu. So that will conclude episode 1 of what I hope is a full reading of this entire game, endings and all. So thanks for stopping by. And until next time, this is Pauncho Smith saying, drink a full glass of water and try not to play with sharp things.